Can you believe it? If we separate London, the United Kingdom would have a per capita GDP lower than Mississippi, the poorest state in the United States. A country once known as the workshop of the world is now witnessing 14 million of its citizens, more than 20% of the population, falling into extreme poverty. This is no longer a political tale, but a systemic collapse of the world's sixth largest economy. Why does a leading power allow millions of parents to go hungry so their children can be fed? Is the glamorous service economy model of London hiding a smoldering pain in the old industrial regions left behind? We will dissect the reality of a broken Britain, where dreams of prosperity are being replaced by a daily struggle for survival. The United Kingdom is currently the sixth largest economy in the world, a proud member of the G7. However, behind the shiny facade of those macroeconomic numbers, there is a cracking truth that perhaps the elites at Westminster do not want us to scrutinize too closely. Have you ever heard of the Mississippi paradox? A shocking analysis from the Financial Times has pointed out that if we strip away London's wealth from the map, the rest of the United Kingdom is actually poorer than Mississippi, the poorest state, which is considered the Rust Belt of the United States. It turns out that London is not the engine pulling the entire nation forward. It is like a magnificent mask placed over the gaunt face of a body that is withering. We are operating like a super-rich city, forcibly connected to a poor country. Since the 2008 crisis, labor productivity has only increased by about 0.4% each year. A pathetic figure, no different from a luxury car with a rusted engine stalling on the highway. What is the consequence? 14 million people, 1 in every 5 Britons, are living in poverty. These are no longer just dry statistics in the newspapers. They are your neighbors, or perhaps the sense of unease present in your own home. The disposable income of the British people is currently only about 57% compared to that of Americans. We used to be a leading force in the world, but now it seems the greatest achievement of this system is turning poverty into a normalized national condition. The social contract our generation once believed in, that hard work would guarantee stability, seems to have been torn apart and discarded. When the mechanism of wealth distribution fails, poverty is no longer temporary. It becomes a systemic trap. How do you feel when you see your country's position eroding like this? Are we truly living in a wealthy kingdom, or just standing on the fringes of a financial center that no longer serves the majority? When the poorest state in America has higher income than most of England, how should we redefine prosperity? GDP means nothing if it cannot heat your home in winter. The real pain lies not in growth charts, but behind closed doors of ordinary families where survival battles quietly. If we talked about economic decline before, now let's step inside those homes. There is a term becoming painfully common: heat or eat. A cruel choice placed before millions of families. According to the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, between 6.8 and 10.3 million Britons are living in extreme poverty. They don't lack luxury, they lack money for food and basic bills. In cities like Kingston upon Hull, families huddle under blankets all day because heating has become unaffordable. Even more troubling is the rise of the working poor. A full-time job no longer guarantees survival. Food banks, once emergency measures, have become permanent lifelines. Organizations like the Trussell Trust report record demand year after year. Their existence now reflects systemic failure, not temporary crisis. Poverty today is not just hunger, it is the erosion of dignity. Many people live in constant anxiety, fearing debt collectors or bills they cannot pay. And then there are the children. Around 4.5 million British children, nearly 30%, live in poverty. In some areas, that number exceeds 50%. Over 165,000 children are growing up in temporary housing, hotels and cramped spaces without kitchens or proper living conditions. This is not just hardship, it is developmental damage. Lack of sleep, poor nutrition, and stress are shaping an entire generation. These conditions have even contributed to child deaths in recent years. We are creating long-term scars that will echo for decades. To understand how this happened, we must go back to the 1980s under Margaret Thatcher. Manufacturing once made up 30% of GDP. Today, it is around 8%. the shift to a service economy left entire regions behind. Policies like right to buy reduced social housing drastically without replacement. Today, over 1 million households wait for housing, sometimes for decades. Then came austerity between 2010 and 2024. Billions were cut from welfare, with devastating human consequences. Public services weakened, inequality widened, and regional disparities deepened. Finally, Brexit and the pandemic delivered further shocks. Trade barriers increased costs, labor shortages hit key sectors, and investment declined. The healthcare system, once a national pride, is now under severe strain. Inflation and energy costs have pushed even stable households into crisis. The feeling that nothing is working anymore is spreading. So where does that leave Britain? This is no longer a metaphor. Broken Britain is a lived reality for millions. A nation that allows children to grow up in poverty risks long-term decline in health, productivity, and social stability. The divide between London and the rest of the country is becoming a dangerous fault line. Yet, amid the crisis, there are small signs of hope, communities supporting each other through food banks and local efforts. The question is no longer whether the system is broken. It is whether there is the courage to fix it. Will Britain face the truth and rebuild? Or continue to rely on the fading glory of its past? Because in the end, a nation cannot stand strong if the dignity of its poorest citizens is eroded. If prosperity belongs only to a few, can it truly be called a United Kingdom? The future will not be decided by politicians alone, but by whether society chooses to confront reality and demand change.